A business without a sign is a sign of no business.
Most people take signs for granted.
We've been a business here in Seattle for over 100 years. You've done so many, you just sometimes forget about them. You start thinking about it, then you can name about 5 more. My grandfather, George Zamberlin, came to America in 1904. Obviously, he needed to get a job and work, and so he started just knocking on doors and asking people if he could do signs and hand painting on their building. In 1915, he incorporated as a company, and that company was Acme Sign Company. And then in 1930, when neon was just coming in, he got right on that and changed his name actually from Acme Sign to Neon Acme Sign Corporation. My father, Anthony Zamberlin, and my uncle, George Zamberlin, joined him in the 50s. And then in 1960, they decided to split. They bought a company called National Neon. And then in 1970, my grandfather passed away. They combined Neon Acme into National Neon. That's how we got to be National Sign Corporation today. He was definitely a promoter and painter, and and grew this business into something that lasted 100 years. You can see he did a lot of work in the public market. That was an immigrant community up there that was selling the vegetables and the fish. He did a lot of work in the international community, both Japantown and Chinatown.
All these restaurants had neon signs, and when they're out there, they really were the best advertisement.
They probably trusted him because he was an immigrant himself, and a lot of times they didn't work in the more established channels of business. I'm sure he did trades back and forth with them because I don't think he had a lot of money. I don't think they might have had a lot.
That's how everyone survived in the old days. Everybody helped each other out.
Also, when you're working in like the Chinese or the Japanese community, once you get known, all the businesses use you. So I'm sure people along the neighborhood and stuff, go have George Zamberlin do the signs, he did our sign. So I think that's where he created a lot of his business relationships. Sometimes we see people when they start really small and then 20 years later they're a huge corporation. It gives small businesses an equal footing with large corporations. We've worked with Dick's Drive-In and we kind of created that whole thing. They were just guys that were starting a restaurant. They came in here, our designers designed it, and now it's a classic.
This sign has been sort of a beacon for everyone's favorite burger restaurant here in Seattle, part of iconic Seattle. It's part of what people associate with their love of our restaurants.
We call this room the Boneyard, or we call it the Ghost Room. I call it the National Sign Museum. We have a lot of interesting older signs here that we've taken down from businesses, and they're so classic that we've kept them. A lot of history for sure. There's a lot of good created artwork here, and it'll show you maybe a lot of good ideas as far as making new signs. So this is one of our old airport packages for SeaTac. This is a big one. This took us over a year. We did the baggage area, the parking garages. We did the main terminal satellites. Even simple, there's a lot of detail. And that's kind of the trick is, they look like almost anybody could make them. Still there, even though we haven't used it for 15 to 20 years. What our pattern people would do is they would put paper up here, the size of the sign, and then they would get a big projector and go back about 50 feet and project the graphic on the wall.
We expanded this big sign and traced everything by hand.
People would put a big roof sign across their building. It might be well over 100 feet. We did the Port of Seattle sign down on the waterfront that used to have, I think, 12-foot letters. And that thing must have been a couple 100 feet across. Computers weren't really around in the way we use them today until like the mid-90s.
New technology came in, and also now we don't have to go through all that anymore.
We've learned a lot over 100 years.
There's a lot of thought and strategy that goes into the design. Creating an image, we're looking at incorporating their brand or making it either grandiose or minimal depending on the location.
You know, is it communicating what you want to the community? Because you're part of that community, and they get a life sometimes of their own. And sometimes they become landmarks, and if you take them down, people get really upset.
We have a lot of customers, they want to see the sign, the old sign. So that way the sign can bring back the history and the memory of the good time that they have here.
That T-ball win, they get a burger, first time driving their car, they drive to Dick's to get a milkshake, and people associate those memories with tastes and smells and visuals as well. So when they see that sign, it takes them back to a happy memory.
When I'm home with my kids, hey, there's a sign, and they just like, oh, all right, there's another sign. But they don't see it the way we do, because I really take pride in what we had accomplished and what we built, and that makes me feel good. Especially when I see it up there, it's like, wow. That's the sign. 25,
30 years later, you drive by and that sign's still there, lit, and we like to tell people that, we did this business's sign.
Watch CityStream Thursday nights at 7 on the Seattle Channel, or get video on demand and podcast anytime at seattlechannel.org.